Coming up on First at 4, a community in southern Kentucky mourns a couple's death as police rule it an accident. And a military commander retired today. Will explain why that is making history.
Dry skies and sky-high temperatures are going to make it feel like the middle of July around here, which is good because that's where we are. The very latest ahead is First at 4 continues.
Mountain News First at 4 continues.
A southern Kentucky community is mourning the deaths of a well-known couple. Police say Lewis and Carol Catron died of accidental carbon monoxide poisoning. Lewis's brother, Sam, was a longtime sheriff of Pulaski County and was assassinated more than 20 years ago. Lewis was also very active in the community. WYMT's Phil Pendleton spoke to people that knew them and has more on how they are being remembered.
Lewis Catron grew up in a law enforcement family. Of course, his father and brother, before they died, were heavily involved in police and law enforcement work. And of course, Lewis Catron would sort of follow in their footsteps, staying very active from the fire department to the rescue squad to the sheriff's office here in Pulaski County, a funeral home, and other aspects throughout the community. Lewis Catron would stay involved in that line of work. Lewis and Carol died Friday. The sheriff says a truck had been left running in the garage. They were found dead in their home. It's been investigated as a tragic accident. Lewis worked at Southern Oaks Funeral Home and had worked for the Kentucky Lottery. Still helped the local sheriff as a special deputy. Richard News says both Lewis and Carol were very active in their community and in their family.
These people were just absolutely, they were just all American. I mean, they were involved with their church. They supported their church. They were involved in the community, and they just didn't talk it. I mean, they lived it. They did it. They were involved with the fire department.
Southern Oaks Funeral Home is handling the arrangements for both. There will be a visitation service after 5 o'clock Wednesday and a funeral 1 o'clock on Thursday, both at the Beacon Hill Baptist Church in Pulaski County. Phil Pendleton, WKYT.
Now, this was tough for Phil to cover. He knew Lewis especially personally because we interviewed him so many times after the death of his brother Sam when he was assassinated many years ago. Autopsies were performed on both and results are not back yet, but officials say at this point everything does point to accidental deaths. Martin County Sheriff John Kirk is asking the fiscal court to intervene with transport troubles. The sheriff says the county's paid transport workers who are hired to drive arrested individuals are refusing to meet his deputies in the field to transport people upon arrest. Jailer Bill Priest says he is not comfortable placing his workers on the front line, wanting them to meet at the courthouse or somewhere it is safe.
Both have points and to talk about, and so I suspect if they continue to talk that it should be able to be fixed, because again, I think it's a problem of simply getting people transported from the scene of the arrest to the courthouse, and that shouldn't be too big of a fix.
The issue is gaining local attention after a Facebook post by the sheriff last week. We'll hear from the jailer and the sheriff coming up tonight at 6.
Sunshine continues out there this afternoon. High pressure keeping it very nice all throughout the region. Here's the view from our camera at Buffalo Mountain here in Perry County. 81 the current temperature, just a few fair weather clouds out there. The view from Wise, Virginia, from the campus of UVA Wise. A little cooler out there. Usually is. How about 72? Yeah, July 10th, 72 in Wise right now. That is remarkably comfortable. Low 80s out there, and if you're not there, you're in the upper 70s. So we're in actually pretty good shape all throughout the region. Your forecast first through those next 12 hours. We're down into the 80s by this evening, into the 70s quickly, and down into the low 60s with a less muggy night in store. Now, Steve, I'll have the very latest on when we see a return to some heat and then the potential for rain and thunderstorms in just a few minutes.
All right, Evan, thank you. History was made within the United States Marine Corps today. Marine Corps General David Berger begins retirement after more than 40 years in the Corps. This marks the first time the Marine Corps has operated without a Senate-confirmed commandant in more than 100 years.
We have a sacred duty to do right by those who volunteer to wear the cloth of our nation. and I remain confident that all Americans can come together to agree on that basic obligation to those who keep us safe.
The historic delay of military confirmations is being held up in the Senate by Senator Tommy Tuberville of Alabama. It's in protest against the Pentagon's abortion policy. In Massachusetts, just under 100 UPS workers and members of the Teamsters Union lined up in front of the company's warehouse. That's where a new contract is on the line, but time is running out.
United Parcel Service employees and members of the Teamsters in Western Mass issuing a show of force as contract negotiations between the union and the company are at a standstill.
UPS has walked away from the negotiating table and said they don't have any more to give us, and that's unacceptable.
Secretary Treasurer of Teamsters Local 404, Jay Azowski, tells Western Mass News a pay raise for part-time workers is what keeps both sides away from the negotiating table.
They made billions last year, and all these men and women out here behind me, they worked through the pandemic, and they kept America moving, brought all the goods to everybody.
Meanwhile, UPS alleges the opposite, saying it's the Teamsters who halted negotiations, saying in part, quote, the Teamsters stopped negotiating this week despite strong proposals from the company that build on our industry-leading pay and benefits for our full-time and part-time employees. We have encouraged the Teamsters to return to the table to continue building on the significant progress we have made, including the recent completion of all local supplements. The current employment contract expires on July 31st. Members of the Teamsters are more than vocal about what will happen if an agreement isn't reached between the two sides.
So if we don't get a deal ratified by then, the UPS will strike themselves and put us on the street. We've already taken a strike authorization vote, and that passed an amazing 97% authorized to strike. So we're just waiting for the company to do the right thing.
Reporting in West Springfield, Glenn Kittle, Western Mass News.
In Memphis, Tennessee, the family of a man shot to death by a sheriff's deputy during a traffic stop last month is demanding the release of video footage of the incident. The family's attorney, Ben Crump, hosted a news conference today to emphasize the importance of showing the video.
We are appealing to Sheriff Bonner and all people of goodwill who believe in truth and transparency, to not say any more, just release the video.
The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation says the deputy was dragged by Hudspeth's car for almost 100 yards before the deputy fatally shot him. A massive landslide has forced the evacuation of 12 homes in the Los Angeles area. Emergency managers say the major landslide remains a threat to multiple homes along one street there, adjacent to a canyon. Officials believe that more homes may be at risk as they continue to survey the situation. Geologists will be surveying the land to determine the cause. In the Phoenix, Arizona area, a woman has decided to pivot careers. After more than a decade as a hairdresser, she is trying something new, but her journey is more of a detour. Colleen Sikora shares her story.
Caring for hair isn't new for Rachel Lewis.
A lot of grooming. I was a hairdresser for 13 years.
But the hair she's working with now is.
I do all the taxidermy work here. My husband came out and I had the can of hairspray and he was like, what are you doing with that? I'm like, it holds the hair perfectly and the ear is in place. And so he's like, oh, I knew your hairdressing would come in use, and it really kind of has.
Opening Copper State Taxidermy in Chandler about 3 years ago.
I'm an animal lover and always have been, and I just thought there's no way I would do something like that. I guess I just fell in love with that it's actually an art.
Creating something new from something dead.
I'm not a hunter, and I have never taken an animal myself, but I just love kind of giving them essentially like a second life and being able to enjoy them in another way.
Creativity.
With being a hairdresser, you look at hair patterns and things like that, and that's what a lot of the taxidermy is like being able to put the skin back where it should go.
And now bringing back nostalgia and novelty.
I ended up creating a taxidermy piggy bank.
Inspired by a digital art creator, the idea cured for a few years.
It just kind of came into my mind when I got the specimens in, and I had it, kind of locked away for a while. I took a casting from the pig. So this is my original, kind of prototype that I started with.
Creating this.
It's an interactive piece too. It's not, just like on the shelf.
While she intended to keep the one she has finished, she sold it, but is working on another. The specimens come from pigs that are stillborn or die shortly after birth from local farms.
I just hope that they understand that I'm not causing harm to these animals, and that they really are loved.
An art.
And the people that fall in love with these pieces, they really do cherish them.
With a new life.
I kind of took them on as what can I do with this to kind of salvage or give it a life that it didn't kind of get to have.
All right, coming up on First at 4, one state is seeing insurers leave as it becomes too expensive and risky to do business there.
And hot weather making a return as we head through the rest of the week. What does high pressure do to the forecast after this?
WYMT News.